live now. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another live here in our small breed dog training group. Today, I have Camille Pisoni here, who works with me as well at Positive Futures. She's awesome. She is our guru for all things dog behavior, dog-to-dog interaction. She's just super knowledgeable about all of this kind of stuff. So I'm super excited for her to be here to talk to us a little bit about navigating kind of dog-to-dog interactions and finding appropriate friends for your dog, whether you have, several large dogs and some small dogs, or you just have small dogs. Any kind of dog, honestly, but we will get into some topics about small dogs as well. But Camille, do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience and yourself and any other fun facts about you, especially whenever it comes to working with dog-to-dog interactions and play?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been a trainer for about 11 years and I'm a certified behavior consultant behavior. I used to work in a really large training facility that had daycare and boarding. So we had play groups going on throughout the day. And so a lot of times trainers got to supervise play groups, and we also worked a lot on introducing dogs to the play groups and kind of rehabbing dogs. So we had a lot of, reactive dogs and people that really wanted our dogs to have better social relationships. And so we kind of worked on, introducing them to groups and stuff like that. And then since then, I've been doing puppy camp here. So I pick up a bunch of puppies and we do a lot of social play. So we, making sure that puppies play appropriately and then they get the social skills they need as adults. And I also have a lot of teenagers that I tend to do play groups with too, because I think it's really hard for people, especially with dogs that hit puberty and that have not been neutered yet. They either don't have the option to go to daycare because they just won't accept them, or it's really hard to find suitable friends that are going to play well. So I tend to have a handful of teenagers on hand a lot of the times too that they get to play. So I've done a lot of managing, groups of 5 or more dogs playing together and then introducing dogs into kind of like the group setting and how that works and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you guys ever want to know what like Disney World is like, go to Camille's house on any day that she's running puppy camp. It's the best thing ever. It's just a bunch of puppies having a blast.
Just puppies running everywhere. Be like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Okay, so moving on to a couple of our questions, actually getting into kind of the content of what we're going to talk about today. First question that I have for you is, what are some general indicators of healthy play versus unhealthy play that you look for whenever dogs are interacting? So this is more in just kind of dogs are off leash together, playing, having one-on-one interactions. What do you look for?
The first thing I'll look at is just the general kind of body posture of the dogs. Are they bouncy, loose, kind of look happy and goofy? Or is there a lot of tension and kind of being really stiff and like faces and teeth showing? That usually kind of tells me, oh, maybe we're not having fun. And I would say that's pretty much like the obvious. Most people I think are comfortable like seeing like those dramatic, yes, my dog is having fun versus my dog is having a terrible time. Yeah. I think the hard part is catching it before it gets to that point, because by the time you get snarly teeth showing, it's gone past the point that we want it to go.
Yeah.
And a lot of successful play interactions or even just doggy introductions is really stepping in before they have an argument so that they can kind of go, I kind of like you, because we never got into a tiff anyway. So usually what I'll look for is either like, one-sided play. So one dog that's the aggressor that keeps kind of like going and tackling everybody else, and everybody else is just trying to get away from them. That's usually a good time to step in, or that, they might not be suitable play partners, that they just don't have suitable play styles. I'll also look for, play that's more like, again, like, go away, and then I'm gonna go away, and then I'm gonna retreat, where it's really not, you can tell there's no like give and take of you chase me, I chase you. It's really just go away, and then oh, you're coming back, let me chase you away. So those are things I'll look for. A lot of times too, because I deal a lot with young dogs and teenagers, I tend to look at like the intensity of play and how rambunctious we're being, because excitement and arousal tends to tip into fights very quickly, even if nobody means to actually start a fight. It just, just like little kids when we're playing and then somebody starts like smacking everybody else because we're just too excited. So usually if there's a lot of running, I'll step in. If there's a lot of wrestling, it's like really intense wrestling and throwing each other down, typically I'll want to stop that
Okay.
just to kind of check in that everybody's still having a good time. Are we on the same page? You know, is everybody
Yeah.
enjoying that, or is it just going way overboard? But generally, yeah, body language is your best indicator of how play is going. You know, you want to look for super loose, very wiggly, very bouncy, like very dramatic type movement. Anything that seems really stiff or tense or slow tends to be a warning sign that maybe we're not actually playing.
Having a good time.
Yeah, maybe it isn't that fun anymore.
Okay, cool. So that's good to know. Really, just any kind of stiffness, even if it's low level, it's probably something we want to step in and intervene. Okay.
Yeah, I would say I tend to be a proponent of stepping in too much. Like I would rather interrupt play too frequently and be like, oops, my bad, go right back to it, versus, well, we'll just see what happens. And then the fight happens. And then it's like, well. And
then nobody wants to play anymore. Okay, so you would rather err on the side of like, I'm going to interrupt and just kind of see what everybody does if I interrupt it, versus like, I'm going to let them kind of work it out and see what happens if they can just sort it out on their own, because it's probably not going to be something great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of stepping in, even when it's not warranted. So a lot of times, again, with my teens, when they start to play, they've played nicely, but it's been like 2-3 minutes. Hey guys, let's go walk around the yard, or let's go take water, just to get everybody a break, because then they kind of reset and go back to, okay, let's do another round of playing that's going to be calmer, versus, again, like getting to the point where it gets snappy and then we're practicing really rude behaviors type of stuff.
Okay.
And interruptions can be like super simple. Sometimes it's just, guys, I'm just going to walk around the yard, and they all go, oh, what are you doing? Yeah. And everybody just follows me around, and they're like, what is, and then everybody goes back to play. It can be really simple. It doesn't have to be a big deal, but just kind of, let's do something else for 2 seconds just to kind of reset everybody.
Okay. That's smart, to just kind of be like, well, I'm going to move around and you guys are going to notice that I'm moving and kind of break it up and follow me. I like that a lot. Okay. Next question that I have. And so this is more so for people who are trying to find friends for their dogs, or trying to find good playmates, or, you know, just dogs that their dogs can be around. How would you go about determining what kind of dogs your dog might get along with? So like, ways to navigate making good quality dog friends.
Yeah, I would say the first thing is, usually I'll try to pair dogs by kind of size, first of all, because usually dogs of the same size tend to play better with each other, and you have less of an issue of, whoa, you're ginormous, you're going to kill me type of things. And I would say the second thing I would look at is like energy level. So if I have like a couch potato, super chill, kind of hang out, I am probably not going to try to introduce them to like a super high strong, let's run type of stuff, because that would be probably too much. But again, also, if I have like a super high strong, let's go type of dog, I might choose a dog that's just a little bit lower energy to interact with, and not just pit 2 super high dogs together. But I wouldn't pick like a couch potato. I would kind of get something a little bit, you know, a couple of degrees up from that.
Okay, so that's smart. Like you wouldn't throw 2 dogs who may jump into like really high arousal play together right away.
Yeah,
because that might cause some trouble. Okay.
Yeah, I would definitely choose like a dog they can match and like respond playfully to that kind of level of excitement, but also is really good at just going, well, let's go sniff grass instead. Let's just go. What's there? Look at that. Yeah. And then one of my dogs, Cole, my boy, is very much like that, especially with his girlfriend Jenko, the little bully, who comes in like super hot. She loves everything and everybody, but she's like, and she's a lot to handle for a lot of dogs. So when she comes home, typically I'll let her play with Cole first, because he's really good at going, oh, look, there's grass, let's go sniff, and oh, there's stuff over there, and she just kind of winds down before Theo comes out, because then Theo kind of matches her crazy, and so the 2 of them together is a lot.
Okay.
But then, you know, to introduce dogs to kind of find friends, that's usually the first thing is like size. Second thing, big thing, the big category is like general energy levels type of stuff. Okay. The third thing I would look at is play style, like what type of play my dog likes to do. So, you know, some dogs like to wrestle, some dogs like to chase, Some dogs like to be chased.
Mhm.
So you want to try and find a dog that has like a similar play style. So if your dog likes to be chased, you want to be with a dog that likes to chase so that there's
Yeah.
like nice back and forth. If you have a dog that likes to wrestle, having another dog that likes to wrestle is going to be, you know, much more compatible mesh than a dog that wants to be chased. And it's like, I don't know why you're trying to bite my feet for. And I would say from there, I would say knowing your dog really well and kind of knowing what they like and what they don't like. Typically, you know, which it can be hard because obviously you find that out by having this kind of experiences and having your dog play with different dogs and going, oh, well, you didn't like that one.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't like that dog
That wasn't
either.
great.
And that's kind of the same type of that dog that you didn't like. And then you can kind of figure out kind of what your dog likes and doesn't like. I would say generally, very broadly speaking, opposite sex work better. So boy and girls tend to be better, girls and boys versus two boys, two girls. That usually is a little bit harder for them to negotiate, especially when you have intact or neutered, unspayed dogs. You know, top tip.
Yeah.
Neutered males will go after intact males on site, almost for no reason, just by virtue of them smelling different.
Yeah.
So typically, I tend to be very, very cautious with my intact teenagers when I introduce them to other male dogs, and I tend to not do it unless I know the other dog like really well. I know that I trust them to be around like intact males. But that's something that you want to keep in mind if you have, especially if you have post-puberty dogs, so 6 months old to a year, and they haven't been spayed or neutered because their hormones are pretty much through the roof, that they might, you know, it might create issues, not because they're doing anything wrong, but just because they smell really off to other dogs, and so they might just not. So generally, to what I try to find doggy friends, I'll usually, especially if it's the first few friends and I'm not sure kind of how to go and what my dog is going to do, I'll tend to choose like friends' dogs that I've been around, and I kind of know like their temperament and general demeanor, and I just won't go like to a random person down the street and, hey, your dog looks cute, let's be friends type of things.
And then so you don't do like if somebody wants to come up and says, hey, my dog wants to say hi to your dog, that's not really necessarily something you do. Okay.
Yeah. Usually I avoid those unless it's you get charged by a random dog, and I usually feel my girl dog is the one I let go to kind of deal with it because she's very good at going, hey, who are you? Okay, bye. Versus Cole might have a stronger opinion about getting charged by some random dog. But typically, I'm not a fan of doing, you know, leash greeting in general, but especially like strange dog greetings. I think you're opening up yourself to a lot of potential risks when you do that for like very little benefits in return, because unless you have like a super duper social dog that loves everybody type of stuff, where the risk is zero because you know they're going to be like, hey. But if you have most of us, our dogs kind of fall in between somewhere, you know, being super social and not being social at all. And I think it's to me it's too much of a risk to go, let's go see if that dog is going to be your friend or not, and then realize, well, no. Because you know, the more bad experiences your dog has, the more they get sensitized, and so then you kind of set yourself up for reactivity or even dog aggression. So you want to be kind of mindful and not just be willy-nilly, let's go make friends.
Okay, that's a good point. Okay, next question that we have for you. What are some safety considerations to keep in mind when introducing small dogs to large dogs? So that you already kind of mentioned was a factor, right? Whenever you're choosing playmates, you may not necessarily have like your shepherds running around off leash with Pocket and Phoebe. Like that probably won't go well because somebody's going to get stomped, right? But if we do have dogs who have kind of a size discrepancy and we think that there may be kind of good, they may be good personalities or they may be a good match for some interaction, are there like any specific safety considerations that you would implement introducing them as opposed to introducing maybe two large dogs or two small dogs?
Typically whenever there's a big size difference, I always have in the back of my mind the predatory drift issue, which is when play turns into predation. That usually happens when there's a big size difference, or when one of the dogs starts squealing or makes like very prey-like sounds, and then everybody will start going, this is food, let's go eat it now. And it can happen very, very quickly. and it's almost impossible to stop it when it happens. So
Mhm.
that's a very significant risk, especially again when you have like big dogs and small dogs. So usually what I'll look for initially before they get introduced is the little dog comfortable, has it been around bigger dogs before, and they're not just going to take off and go screaming, because that's for sure a way to get like a very bad experience.
Yeah.
And then has the big dog been around small dogs? So like, do they know kind of the etiquette of dealing with something that's small and not just stomping and just
Mhm.
steamrolling them all over? Once that's established, typically I will do like the first few greetings or playtime with the big dogs on a leash or on a line that they drag around,
Okay.
so that you can kind of hold them back a little bit if it gets a little too crazy or too exciting, or if the little dog really starts running, so that again you don't have that chasing the small thing
Yeah. Element to it.
at speed, that then, oh my god, is it a dog or is it a squirrel, kind of thing.
Yeah.
A lot of times too with my bigger dogs, I tend to, when they interact with small dogs, I tend to encourage them to lay down and do a lot of like ground level playing and kind of wrestle
Oh
type of
yeah, that's
stuff.
smart.
I think that's a really nice way to kind of set the boundaries for the big dog of, you have to play gentle, and by kind of forcing them to self-handicap,
Yeah.
that you can kind of set the tone of, see, when you're small and you make yourself gentle, the little dog plays with you. If you're standing and very tall and scary, then the little dog might not want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
I think it's also nice for the little dogs because it kind of boosts their confidence too, that okay, we're on kind of equal playing field, and it's not, and so then play gets better because they kind of figure out how to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And then typically from there, if they've played nicely a couple of times, then I'm much more relaxed about just letting them be. So one of my dog's friends is a little Havanese that's been around since they were all puppies. And they run in the yard together. He chases the ball and then chases the shepherds. And then I'm always supervising just in case. But I mean, pretty much he's fine. He's grown around the shepherds. He knows them really well. And he knows how to kind of, the deal of, if they start chasing you or too much, he just faces them and goes, hey, cut it out. That's enough.
Yeah.
He shows his teeth, and he doesn't run. He doesn't scream. He's not the panicky type of dog.
Yeah.
And other dogs read him really well, that he's like, okay, that's enough. I'm going to move on. So that's usually the things I would look for in a small dog, and a dog that knows kind of how to stop play.
Like use that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah, very effectively and very completely. That goes, no, I'm going to stop. I'm going to face you, or I'm going to go into hiding where you can't reach me, without panicking and running really fast. That for me always adds like a really huge level of safety, because I know if something should escalate, or if I'm too slow, or if I miss something, that my little dog knows how to kind of get to safety without triggering, again, like a huge either chase or a big event where everybody's just going to go flying off the handle.
Like making it a big deal. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've even noticed like Pocket is not a great candidate for off-leash play with large dogs because she's so zoomy. Like that's her thing that she defaults to anytime she gets even moderately excited. But I found that she does really well with bigger dogs in play if like she's on an elevated surface. So he loves to be like, I'll make sure like the big dog, you're not getting up on the couch with her. Like she gets that's her way to be at your face level. And then you guys can do like your little bitey face kind of stuff, whatever it is. And she does a lot better with that. And I've noticed it doesn't escalate nearly as much too, which
and I think too, because that's also, if you can't get the big dog to come down to that level, then elevating the little dog is a great way. And also because a lot of times when they're on an elevated surface of any kind, their ability to run is limited, so they can't do the whole emergency, I'm gonna just take off type of stuff. And it's like, I know you think it's self-preservation, that running away is gonna save you, but it's not. That's the last thing you want to do, is don't run away, just go to high ground.
Pocket loves to make it worse. Okay, so next question that I have, and this is just kind of going off of the idea of off-leash play time, one-on-one time with other dogs. Do you have any particular thoughts or opinions about taking dogs to like a city dog park? That's usually what people think of whenever they think about taking dogs to go play. They're like, oh, I'll go take them to the nearest dog park, let them meet a bunch of other dogs and play there.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of dog parks, just because I think, there's a lot of unknown, right? You don't know who's going to be in there. I think also a lot of people use the dog park as kind of the end-all be-all. They don't want to kind of put in the effort to tire the dogs. The dogs are just flying off the handle like, oh, just go to the dog park and you'll be fine. You'll tire yourself out. So what
Yeah.
you typically see at a dog park is a lot of like super aroused dogs, and they tend to all be young dogs too. So a lot of like teenage type dogs who tend to be very rude anyway, even if they're not in that super aroused state,
Hmm.
and tend to be super oblivious, in your face, not picking up on any hint and stuff like that. So what tends to happen at dog parks is you get a lot of tiffs, like spend
Yeah.
any amount of time outside of the dog park and you're guaranteed to hear somebody, a scuffle happening somewhere.
Hmm.
And B, if you don't have scuffles, typically you're just rehearsing like really rude and inappropriate play. And then what tends to happen is your dog then thinks that's how they're supposed to interact with every dog that they
Hmm.
see and meet. And then they learn the hard way that no, that is not how you initiate play or play with other
Yeah.
dogs. And then it can be really confusing because they have on one end this like super arousing, quote unquote, good experience. And then every dog they meet outside of that tends to be like a really bad rude awakening type of stuff.
Hmm.
So it can kind of create again reactivity or even dog aggression, like unleash aggression because
Yeah.
dogs get like really sensitized to it. And also again at the dog park, sometimes you don't have a whole lot of control. I mean, you have zero control over everybody else's dogs.
Yeah.
The level at which
Hard part.
other people are involved and able to intervene is again like a complete unknown. Sometimes you have great owners that are on top of things. Sometimes, I mean, you don't even know who the dog belongs to because no one's there.
Yeah.
So
It's like sitting on their phones. Like,
yeah, and say who yeah,
yeah.
the dog has been humping every dog in the park.
Yeah.
Like who does this belong to? And it's like what? So it can be really hard to kind of enforce rules and boundaries and protect your dog because nobody else is necessarily going to help you. Now that being said, I do like dog parks off hours. So I usually will tell people, if you have a super social dog that
Yeah.
really likes meeting dogs, has good social skills, going to the dog park like off hours, middle of the day, in a
Yeah.
weekday. Usually I'll tell people try to go like the same day, same time type of stuff so that you kind of see the same group of people and dogs so that you can have like a group of friends that your dog gets to hang
Yeah.
out. Because during going to the dog park is like the first day of school for us. Some people enjoy it. Most people, I would not want to go back to first day of school,
No.
ever, but especially not like on a regular basis, right? Of taking your dog to the dog park like 2-3
Yeah.
times a week. It can be super stressful for them. Even though it's fun, it can be very stressful. So usually I'll do, use it sparingly, go at off times, and then I would scope out the park too before actually going there so you can kind of see like the problematic dogs, the problematic people, what days and times are kind of seem like the comments or like dogs that you think your dog will mesh in well. And also not every dog park is created equal, and that's not always easy to pick because you're limited. I mean, cities build dog parks and they all want to build them as giant fields, which is not usually conducive to good play because it's just open season on everybody.
Yeah.
What you want to see like a good dog park would be like hilly, like rough terrain, lots of blind spots kind of stuff so that there's not like a continuous open field of I can see every single dog running and I'm going to get super excited about it. So like a hilly park, lots of trees, park that has like obstacles and stuff like that. Those are nice because they tend to slow dogs down and just reduce arousal. So typically if I can pick and choose, I'll choose those type of dog parks to go to versus the flat open field type because those typically, again, you'll see a lot more like chasing and super high arousal in those types of places.
I feel like that's always whenever I get really stressed out looking at dog parks is whenever it turns into like one dog is running.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden
20
like,
are just
20
chasing.
dogs are chasing them. Yeah. And then you can just like, obviously the trainer in me can see the dog being chased is not having a good time. Like they're running for their life. And then everybody's like, oh, look at this. They're all getting their exercise. And it's like, it's like open season on the one dog. And they're like, I'm about to die. I'm being chased by a mob.
Yeah.
And no one's helping them.
Yeah. And it's like, everybody's like just looking and like, you'll be fine. And it's like, well, maybe not. So I usually, that's what usually I'll recommend is doing off hours and like, trying to find dog parks that are a little bit more interesting, even for the dogs so that, the main interest is not necessarily playing with the other dogs. It might just be to go walk around and sniff stuff. And kind of do more of like exploring type and then maybe playing a little bit versus just play.
Yeah. We have a question here. And I think this goes into, I don't know if you're just joining or not, but this goes into kind of what we covered a little bit earlier. But it says, my medium-sized pup loves small dogs, but is uncomfortable around large ones. Any suggestions to help her acclimate to large pups? So kind of what we already covered, but any tips for that?
Yeah, I would try to find like a super soft, super gentle, bigger dog, even if it's a dog that's not necessarily playful, but just a bigger dog that she can kind of hang around with and kind of test the waters and be comfortable and be like, oh, okay, just because you're bigger than me doesn't mean you're going to attack me or hurt me or be rough with me or anything like that. And then usually I'll just then gradually introduce to more active, like difficult dogs, meaning more and more active, more and more playful until you can get to like a normal, bigger, playful type of dog. But typically, and also, I'm a big fan of the approach and retreat type technique where, dogs are encouraged to approach something and then they do, and then they're rewarded away from whatever the thing they're approaching. And that's a really good way to build their confidence because they kind of go, oh, okay, if I'm scared, I can leave. Yep. Exit wide open. If you don't like it, you can take off. But in order to get the cookies, they have to engage with the thing, right? Because you have to engage with it to leave it to get the cookie. And so I'll do a lot of that too, maybe, with a leash or with a fence. Granted that your dog doesn't have any kind of fence frustration or fence aggression. Oh, they see the big dog. Good job. Cookie away. They go find it. They look at the big dog or approach the fence. Yeah, good job. Cookies. And you can play that game on leash too, kind of gradually getting closer until you get like a nice butt sniff. That's like a nice way to kind of do like a nice purposeful introduction of this is fine and this dog is friendly. If you go interact with it, you'll get good stuff out of it instead of I'm good. I'm just gonna die.
I'm looking up at you. You're taller than me. You're scarier than me, and now I'm terrified, and I'm gonna make poor choices.
Yes, I'm gonna die.
They said, "Love that. Thank you." So that was helpful. All right, moving on to our next question that we have for you. So this actually kind of goes off of that question. I could see this being kind of relevant for it. But especially for those of us who have dogs that are not necessarily you take them into an off-leash situation, throw them in a backyard, a dog park, whatever it is, a daycare, and let them go play with other dogs. They're not the super playful type, right? They may be more inhibited or that may be a little scary for them. Do you have any suggestions for alternative ways for dogs like that to interact with other dogs and make dog friends?
Yeah, sure. I'm a huge fan of doggy hikes, so going on hikes with like doggy friends. I think it's a super undervalued, underused thing that people like don't think about it. Because the thing to remember too is just like us, you don't need to physically touch and hug your friends to be happy to see your friends. You can just hang out with them and then go to the park, go to the music, and that's the same as you're having your social timeout and stuff like that.
I think both of us are not touchy-feely people.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I mean, I'm like, hug? Why would you hug anybody? That's for us. But like you don't need to be on top of your friends or like have like super intimate, deep. Like you can just hang out, go get a beer for 5 seconds, and back, and you still feel like you've been seeing your friend and have like that social meter filled. Yeah. And dogs are the same. They don't need to be on top of each other in order to feel their social meters. They can just be around the dogs. So even just watching dogs play at a dog park while you just work around it, that's a way to get their exposure to dogs and get their social meter. But hikes with other dogs it's really nice on many fronts. It's really nice for dogs who tend to be overexcited to kind of teach them that yes, there's dogs around us. It's not always going to be an opportunity for play and arousal. Sometimes we're just going to do other stuff with dogs around. It's not always going to be full out. It's also really nice for dogs who tend to be a little bit insecure so that, again, you don't have the pressure of now you have to interact with them. You can just share space together, but there's more interesting stuff to do. And it's also a really nice way to kind of give dogs an idea of how we want them to behave, again, in public around other dogs, so that seeing a dog is not a completely novel, wow, type of stuff, or on the opposite spectrum, a yeah, let's go play type of
Yeah.
stuff. So you kind of fall in between. And what I usually will do with groups of dogs, if they've never met before, or if I have dogs that are kind of, mixed between being too excited and being a little bit insecure,
Mhm.
is usually we'll start at a distance. We'll give like a good 20, 25 feet between the dogs, and we'll just walk parallel. Let the dogs kind of sniff, get out that super, oh my God, we're in
Yeah.
a new place, and the novelty of seeing the other dogs around. And when they kind of start sniffing and looking more into the environment and like going for a walk, and
Mhm.
they're acting more like they're on an actual walk, usually we'll start drifting a little bit closer, maybe take turns like following each other so that everybody can get like a nice little distance butt sniff. And then usually what you'll see is everybody relaxes and they'll start to all drift towards the same smells. And then that's the best way to introduce dogs. Then they all smell the same smell at the same time, and they kind of go like nose touches, and then everybody moves on, and then you come
Yeah.
back in for nose touches, and everybody moves on. That's like super low key, really great way to get dogs introduced because there's no conflict, there's no high stakes. They're
Yep.
doing it at their own time. So everybody's like practicing really polite behavior because they're all doing like really nice, like moving toward each other, super, softly and politely, and not being like super rude and forward and hi, my name is kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So it's really nice rehearsal for even in the future for meeting dogs in general.
Mhm.
And I find it super relaxing, even for me, like it's super relaxing. You're walking in the woods, with buddies, you're chatting. The dogs everybody's like super relaxed. It's really informal.
Everyone's
And
depressing. Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
everybody gets out of it, and the dogs especially, because they get that nice like physical exercise of walking.
Mhm.
They get the enrichment from being out and about somewhere
Yeah.
else and exploring, and the social interaction of being around other dogs. So I mean, it feels like all the buckets. And every time I do a doggy hike, my dogs are out like the
Mhm.
rest of the day.
Same.
They're like,
Yeah.
we're done. That's it. We everything is met. Now
Yeah.
we can just take a nap and hang out, and that is it.
It checks all the boxes for my dogs too.
Yeah.
Anytime I take them, I mean, if I haven't taken them out in that kind of setting for a long time, they get to be a little bit like almost needy. Pocket gets naughty. She starts trying to take herself for walks by trying to dig out of the yard. But yeah, they both get a little bit like needy and a little bit restless. And
Yeah.
they're just kind of like, I know we went on a walk earlier and that's normally the walk we do, but like, let's do something else. Let's do something else. And then
Yeah, this
I
is not
take
that.
them out. Yeah. And I'm like, go out, be in the woods, be in this big open field. Let's go walk. Let's go smell. Let's go move. And like an hour of that, they're done for
Yeah.
like 2 days, honestly.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yeah,
They're
same with mine. They're like,
satisfied. Yeah.
we're good to go the rest of the week. Like the
Uh-huh.
rest of the week, we can do low key stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just simple. I mean, even today, dog diving. I mean, granted, dog diving is very physical on them, so
Yeah.
it gets them like physically tired. But just like being around people and saying hi, and then seeing each other, friends from a distance, and like, oh, cool, we had the best day ever. And
Yeah.
it's like,
It was great.
you literally just passed each other from the
Uh-huh.
car to the pool, and it's like, yeah, but that's enough. I saw
Yeah.
my friends.
It was funny. And that's funny because I mean, even like I'm thinking about Cole and Phoebe, like the weird times this past couple times that she's seen him, she's been like happy to see
Yeah,
him. And
it's
they've
like,
never
hello.
like, yeah, I don't even know if they've ever like nose to nose met. And like there's just
No.
been a few times that it's just because she's just been in the presence of him because she's my less social of the two. She's pretty selective about who she lets in her circle, dog and human. But like she'll just because she's had these interactions of like Cole is here while we're doing fun things, and that's happened multiple times. She's like, "Oh, that's my friend," and
Yeah.
you're like, "What? Why are you happy to see
Yeah,
him?"
she's like, I like him.
Sometimes your size, and y'all like haven't ever directly interacted, but
again, it's
Yeah.
because the power of associations, right? Every time
Yeah.
she's seen him, it's always been a fun time for her, and because they've never interacted, she's never had a bad experience with him because they've always been far enough that I mean they can like nose touch, but that's been much it. So of course she's like, yeah, of course he's my friend, because it's always fun when I see him versus if he'd stepped on her and gone full gung ho Cole. Well, I mean he's pretty good about small dogs because he does love puppies, but he's a big ass dog.
Yeah.
If he had got gung ho, I'm gonna play with her and roll her around the lawn like I do with the puppies. For sure, she would have much stronger feelings about it.
She would be like, "You're cut off.
I hate
We're never
you."
gonna be friends ever."
But I think the issue is that it's really hard to find like good information about this type of stuff. And
Mhm.
if you look online, which most people now do, like,
Yeah.
online is our main like source of information, you're stuck between two extremes. So one is don't let your dog interact with anything ever, which is just
Mhm.
silly.
Yeah.
And then B, or example, like really poor examples of dog interactions, like with really
Yeah.
harsh corrections from the dog, where the dogs are like, they were not having fun at any point during
Yep.
the whole thing. And then it gets touted as, oh, but that's appropriate. That one was being annoying. And then the other one corrected
Mhm.
the crap out of that dog. And it's like, but that's not healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Like, when you're friends, like when you're truly friends with somebody, if
Not
they do
slapping each
something,
other in the
yeah,
face.
if
Yeah.
somebody, they piss you off, you're like, hey, that hurt my feelings, and you talk
Yeah.
about it. You don't just like dead punch the other in the face. Like, that's not how that works.
Yeah. It's
So
not
I
how
feel like,
friendships work. Yeah.
people, and then we're flooded with just bad interactions, to the point where we think it's normal for dogs to snap. And like, then that's why we have the whole like, just let them work it out. They haven't
Yeah.
growled yet, they haven't snapped yet. Yeah, but when they snap, it's too late. Like,
Mhm.
you've gone too
There's
far.
already
there's
damage
there's
done.
about
Yeah.
25 different signals before dogs get to the snapping point.
Mhm.
And it's our job to kind of get in there before they get to the point of disagreement. You're like, no, that's just
Yeah.
fine. It's fine. We're cool. Okay, take a break. You're okay.
Oh yeah.
Because we're dealing with toddlers, so you wouldn't let like your 3-year-olds work it out.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
not gonna go well. Yeah.
yeah, because
Only gonna get worse.
somebody's gonna lose an eye. So same
Yeah.
thing with dogs. Like, at some point, we're the adults, and we kind of have to go.
Yeah.
Okay, that's enough of that. Let's cut it out.
Yeah. I feel like that resonates too, especially with just like specifically small dogs, just because their faces and like all of their communications are way easier to miss.
Yeah.
Go to the ground, like their literal bodies and faces are smaller. So like that one little like muzzle tighten or whatever it is, or that little whale eye or whatever it is
Yeah.
a lot harder to pick up on. So I feel like whenever you're a small dog owner, you have to be like even more so of an expert whenever it comes to picking up on the, hey, this hasn't turned into a big, we're arguing or we're snapping or pinning somebody down, but this one dog is definitely showing a little bit more of that like shriveled up body language,
Yeah.
having a good time. And like, this is the time to intervene. It's not, after the dog has learned over and over and over again that I'm not listened to unless I explode.
Yeah.
And it's like anytime, which is honestly, Phoebe has gotten so much better about it. That kind of used to be what she would default to, especially whenever I didn't really know much better, right? Like whenever I first got her, only thing that worked was explosions. And so that's what she went to. Like a dog would sniff her butt just a little bit too long and all of a sudden it's rah at their face.
Yeah.
And like that's, not only you're allowed to tell him, okay, you're getting a little bit too much, but you don't tell him that by going for his face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
like,
too much.
There are many steps that you can take, and like I will stop it if he does not. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so just like I feel like it's even more so overstated. Like if you're seeing those low level signs, that's the time to intervene. Don't wait and see what happens.
Yeah, no, especially with littles, because they have to compensate for their size, right? They're tiny, so they usually have to posture more and be louder than everybody else. Already from the get-go, even if you have a dog that doesn't have issues, they usually need to project a lot more.
Yeah.
Also, little dogs tend to have way more like baby features than bigger dogs. So even when they do like hard stare, on a small dog, it's not the same as when a shepherd hard stares.
Yeah.
When a German shepherd hard stares you're like Lily, you feel your guts go whoop.
Yeah.
Because
like
it's very very, very visible. Like you can feel it. Whereas with little dogs, because they have those baby features, it just doesn't come through. You're like, well, you're being cute. It's like, no, I'm actually die right now.
I'm glaring at you.
Yeah. Drop dead the second. So I think a lot of times too, especially when we have small dogs, I think it's even more important for us humans to advocate for our dogs. And again, I would rather, because I had like a mini Doxy before, and she was super, so like loved big dogs because she had been around big dogs all the time and she was really good about it. But even then I was like, no. Okay, that's enough. That's too much, because she's a tiny little like 8-pound dog.
Yeah.
And because I want her skills to continue, the more I step in and have her back, the more she knows, okay, I don't actually have to escalate. If I start doing just a little bit, I know my human will see it and just like step in and help me out. And I think that's the best we can do for our small dogs is, again, like know them really well and kind of know their mannerisms and kind of like, oh, okay, this is not play anymore, and just step in so that they know, okay, that's enough. I don't have to get beyond that point.
Yeah, it's super important. Okay, so last question that we have, if anybody is watching and you have any questions that have popped up while you're watching, this is your chance now to put it in the comment section for us to get to it. But last question that I have for you kind of goes back to whenever we were talking about taking dogs out and about in new places, seeing other dogs, meeting other dogs, whether it's a strange dog or, you know, somebody you know. But I would like to know what some of your tips are for handling unwanted encounters when out and about, especially if you're out and about with a small dog. So whether it's somebody who's not necessarily taking a hint that you're not trying to say hi and they're letting, you know, their dog drag them up to you, or it's just somebody who has an off-leash dog in a place they shouldn't and the dog is running at you head on. What would you do in that kind of situation, or what do you think people should do?
Yeah, usually my first go-to option is to turn around and try to go away. Because even with a charging off-leash dog, if you turn around and start moving away from them, a lot of times they lose steam. They go, oh, but you're not there anymore. No, you're walking away. And especially because either it's like overexcited thing, or sometimes when you have those dogs that are charging because they like the charging aspect. By leaving, you're completing their sequence, right? Oh, you made me leave. You're so strong. Bye bye. I'm leaving. You don't need to keep going. So usually that's the safest thing, when obviously depending on where you are, because sometimes you don't have the option, but typically I'll just turn around and move with haste, like not running, because obviously you don't want to trigger that let's chase everybody around. But usually I'll move with purpose and keep my dog moving, so they're not doing the over the shoulder check and giving the other dog shit for your chart. No, we're moving along. Let's keep going.
We're just going. We're out of here.
And if the other dog is very insistent on coming back, I might toss cookies behind me to kind of like slow them down and get them distracted. I think that's worked really well for me in most situations. And I've had a lot of like random off-leash dogs. Like I had one in the woods one time with my reactive shepherd who would not be happy that a dog was creeping up on him. Literally just he was creeping on us through the woods. And I just saw, at some point, I just like looked over my shoulder and saw him, and he was friendly, but he was just like, and I'm like, okay, let's turn around, let's go. I'm not finding out, you know, who you belong to. I don't care. We're going, we're leaving. That's it.
We gotta go.
And that typically works pretty well. I would say if the other dog is on leash, typically, obviously, being aware of your surrounding is huge. So, you know, when you see those little dogs, or, you know, owners with like the dogs somewhere at the end of a retractable, you don't even know where the other end is. Usually I'll start adding space. I might turn around, or I might just dodge sideways just to have like a nice clearance, and then let's pause, let's let them pass, and then we'll keep going so that we're not running into, oh, well, look at that. Surprise, there's a dog. Sometimes what I'll do too, if I see somebody like giving me the eye, like, oh, they're getting excited, typically I'll start focusing like really hard on my dog and going, we're leaving it, good job, let's go this way, so that you're projecting that you're training, that you're not saying hi, because you're training your dog not to say hi, and also because now there's no eye contact, it's really hard for people then to solicit your attention or just barging, because it feels ruder to people to do that. So typically that's my go-to, especially when I have puppies that everybody wants to say hi to and gets like super excited. Typically my go-to is I'll just sidestep and then go, oh, puppy, good job, let's go over here. Again, let's we're not gonna say hi, we're not playing today, let's go, come on. And just all my attention is on the puppy. People kind of laugh and like, oh, that's cute, they're training, and then you just kind of move on and you know, avoid a lot of that. That's usually my go-to. So my first is leave the situation, especially if it's loose dogs or dogs that I feel are potential like risks and stuff. If not, then usually just directing my attention to my dog, and also helps the dog, because then your dog goes, ooh, what are we doing, type of stuff, instead of everybody fixating on the problem that's coming up. And then typically we'll just dodge and then go right back on our way. What has happened sometimes, because now that I have two, obviously sometimes it can be harder to dodge when you have two, especially when you have two big dogs, because physically I can only hold on to them for so much, and then if they want to go, we're all going.
We're all going, whether or not.
What I usually will do is I will let go of my more social dogs. So Theo, my girl, If I have an off leash dog charging us, I just drop her the leash, let her handle it because I know she'll be completely appropriate. Move Cole out of the way. Usually, either book it because also I know Theo will come back to me wherever I
Yeah.
am, or put him in the car and then go get Theo because I know he will start a fight if somebody
Yeah.
is really rude to him. So usually that's what happens, when you have multiple dogs to pick out. If you have one dog that's better, even if they're not all good, but if you have
Yeah.
one dog that's better,
Uh-huh.
kind of let them run interference. It's not ideal, but in an emergency,
Mhm.
that'll buy you time to put the other one away or put them on higher ground or hide or for the other person to get their
Mhm.
dog and kind of avoid the whole situation.
Yeah.
With little dogs, the advantage is that you can pick them up,
Yep.
which is great.
And pick up your little dogs. If anybody tells you you're not allowed to do that, they're misinformed.
Yeah, they have issues.
Yeah.
Totally fine. I am likely to pick up my full size German
Yeah.
Shepherd if I to protect him. I would definitely like throw him over my shoulder.
Mhm.
The thing you want to make sure too is that when you pick up your little dog, that you do keep them tucked to you,
Yeah.
really close. That there's no dangling legs or anything like that because dogs will jump up and try to latch on. So usually I will hold it really close to me, really tight, and I'll use
Yeah.
my legs to kick at things that are coming at me so that my dog is safe and we're not
Yeah.
just being a target. But yeah, totally fine to pick up your dog.
Oh yeah. I've even heard, which thankfully I've never had to use, but I've even heard of people with small dogs, like if there's a dog that's charging them and it's quite obviously aggressive, right?
Mhm.
Like this is dangerous kind of situation. Like if you're in a neighborhood kind of situation, find a trash can, toss your little dog in the trash can, toss your little dog over somebody's fence. Obviously, you can see that the fence doesn't have dogs inside.
Yeah.
But like throw it over somebody's fence. Literally, I've even heard of people like putting the dog on the roof of a parked car, right?
Yeah.
Like you can apologize to whoever's car it is. I'll pay you back for whatever scratches you have to get buffed out or whatever it is. You can figure all that out later. But if there's something around you that you can like throw your dog in or over or on, like do that. No, I'm always looking around for things like that if I see a suspicious situation.
Yeah, same. If I were anywhere where there was like a fence that I could lug my dogs over, I would very likely just toss them over and be like, okay, just wait there.
Yeah, until we get this dog away from us.
When it's done, you'll be back. I think that's completely fine. I mean, whatever you have to do to protect your dog, I mean, do it because I don't care what macho men on the internet say. Like, oh, you're a sissy. Yeah, I don't care. If you can save my dog's life, I really don't care.
I've definitely picked mine up. I've definitely been that person that people talk about like they're super offended by, on the internet. Like I've seen dogs, especially whenever I lived in Dallas, I lived in a really heavily populated area. Thankfully where I am now, it's a little bit less, but I was in like a really, really urban apartment complex, and there were several dogs that we would encounter on a pretty regular basis that were not giving good
vibes.
Yes, they would always make me kind of like look over my shoulder, and I'm like, do you have a good grip on that leash right now?
Yeah. How secure is that?
Yes. And they were giving really hard stares. They were super fixated on my dogs, and they were, at the end of the leash, it seemed like they were kind of like struggling to hang on.
Yeah.
And in those anytime I saw their dogs, if it wasn't a situation that I couldn't just turn around and go around another building, I would pick mine up, and I was like, I kind of don't care that I look like that person right now that's like, oh, my little tinies that, people get made fun of all the time, because it doesn't matter. It takes one instance, and, they can be killed.
Yeah.
So I just am not chancing it. And I would so much rather somebody be offended by this lady on the street picking up her dogs than there being an actual incident happening.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to do it if you have to.
Absolutely. I mean, I admire, because obviously now I have 2 German Shepherds, and they're both like good sized German Shepherds. So a lot of times on trails, when we pass small dogs, a lot of times people will, whoa, and then I always give them extra clearance. We'll step out of the way. Because I want you to feel safe.
Mhm.
I have two big ass dogs. You don't know if
Yeah.
I can hold on to them. If they wanted to go, I might just go with them.
Yeah.
And then your little dog fits in Cole's mouth. His head is bigger than your dog.
Yeah.
So it's like to me, it's just so silly. People who have an
Yeah.
issue with it, I think it stems from people who obviously never had small dogs and don't understand like the reality of having a small dog
Yeah.
and being charged by dogs or having really close calls by dogs
Yeah.
on leash, like on a regular enough basis that it's a problem. Not like
Mhm.
once in a blue moon. No, it happens when you have a small dog. Like it happens regularly that you
Yeah.
have close calls or that you feel like your dog's safety is in jeopardy. And or it's just this fun. It's a way to poke fun and make fun and kind of like
Yeah.
make ourselves feel better. But yeah, if you have a small dog, you're picking them up. If I had, my dream would be to have like 8 Doxies,
Yeah.
and I would scoop them all up in my arms, all of them. They would all
Have
go
a big
flying.
sling and just scoop them all and put them in
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
I would just have a baby Bjorn at me at
Yeah.
all times, and they would just go into the baby pouch, and that's it. Like it happens absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my God, I can't wait for that day. I'm so
When
excited.
when I'm an old lady, probably when I'm like senile, I'll just
Yeah.
I'll get 12
Oh,
Doxies, and then they'll go everywhere with a little posse.
Oh, we have a question. Okay. Let's see. I'll put it on here. What are your rules for two dogs meeting when both are on leash? Never only if cued, judgment based only on body language.
Yeah, typically on body language, depending on the dog. Like if I know the dog well,
Yeah.
like Theo, for my girl, I allow her to meet other dogs on leash because she's just really low key. She'll sniff, she'll just do, and then she'll move on to do something else. I almost never allow Cole to meet, especially new dogs on leash, because every time like he just goes into you're like, why? And he's like, because I'm on a leash. Because I can.
I'm restricted. I'm upset.
So I need to be like a big bad boy. But so if you know your dog well and you have a dog that's very social, and more like on the submissive type, like a very differential type of dog, I would say fine. I don't love them, but it's fine because your dog is very likely to just go, "Oops, sorry, my bad," and move on and not escalate to fighting. Or if you have like a calmer dog too consistently, they tend to kind of be okay. I'm just gonna move on and do something else. But typically, my favorite way on leash is to just do walking together, like parallel walk, and then gradually get closer. Typically, when you have social dogs, it doesn't have to be like a 5-hour hike before they say hi. You can literally do it for 10 minutes, and then dogs can say hi. And then if that goes well and nobody's like flying off the handle, okay, let's go to like a fence area or like a backyard and then let them off the leash and see how they do. I would say typically, the first few times that strange dogs play together, it tends to be really awkward. Just kind of like us, when you meet somebody, it's small talk it's weird. And then you kind of get into things and you're like, okay, now we kind of know how to talk to each other. So typically at the first 2-3 instances that dogs tend to play with each other, it'll be awkward. There might be a lot more conflict because they're trying to negotiate, like, how fast can I chase you? Or how hard can I tackle you? Was that too much? Can I take toys from you? Yes or no? Or maybe sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. And then once they've established all those rules, typically that's when you're in the green zone where it's fine. And even if they did get into a tiff, it's the very moment like, oh, sorry, my bad. And then it just kind of move
they've
on.
got that friendship to fall back on.
Yeah. But yeah, typically that's why I like to do like nice, and especially with introductions. I mean, I would rather, again, take too much time introducing two dogs and it being too slow than rushing it, because then it's really hard to come back from that versus going too slow and then having to catch up, make up time for, just taking a little too long to say hi to each other.
Yeah. There's very few instances where just taking your time is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Whenever it comes to that. Okay. I think that's everything. I think this was talking about whenever we were discussing how to handle those unwanted encounters. But yes, I recall and pick up my dog many times during a walk. So it's just a cool trick we do. And I pick her up whenever I don't like oncoming. Yep. Same thing. Yeah. The more that you can make, and honestly, that's with anything, but especially whenever it comes to like skills that are defensive skills, like whether you have a reactive dog or you don't, the more you can just make the behaviors you're going to need in those like, oh shit moments, just a trick, or it's just a thing we do sometimes. Like, I even do it whether there's something there or not. So like I'll practice management skills with my dogs, even if there's nothing there. So it doesn't always mean
Yeah.
like every time they hear it, they're like, where's the dog? Or where's
Yeah.
the thing that's happening? It's just like, oh, this is a fun thing that I do, whether there's something there or not. And it makes it super reliable. But yeah, picking up your dog is totally fine. Totally fine to do. I think that's it for me. Do you have anything else that you want to add, or?
No, I think
Good? Okay.
we covered a lot of stuff.
That was a lot. Yeah. It was a lot of things. It's like an hour of talking. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. Whenever I get off of here, the recording will be posted in the group, and I'll go ahead and put it in the group guide with the other lives, and we'll also have it on YouTube. So if you need to revisit anything that we talked about, it will be there for you. But I enjoyed it. This was great.
I enjoyed it too.
All right, y'all. We'll see you next time. Bye.